Hey, what's up, guys? It's Dave Dufort here, early in the morning at 6:07 Eastern on Friday, June 23rd, 2017. You are watching my No BS. Whoa, voice is breaking, going through puberty again. My No BS final expense sales training full analysis for my results this week in the field. If you haven't seen this before, I've made it a regular occurrence now last month to report my production to you as a way to A, show you what this business is really like when you get out there and work it, and then B, just be fully transparent to you and hopefully give you some motivation, some inspiration. So again, you can see what actually is very possible when you go out there and begin to try to work and be successful in this business. So it's Friday morning. Cutting this real early. As you can tell, I've just woke up. My voice isn't quite there. But I am done for the week and want to show you my full review on how things went, and then give you some information as to what I did, how I did it, and then go from there. So what you're looking at here is a marked out schedule of all the appointments I completed for the week. Now, what makes this unusual is that normally I work direct mail leads. I go out and, if you've never watched this before, I go out and buy direct mail leads just like I teach my agents to do. Whether you're in the Final Expense Agent Mentor program where you work with me, or the Inner Circle program if you're in one of my coaching groups through that, this is the primary method in which you must do ultimately, if not initially, to have the most success in the final expense business. So I go out normally and do direct mail leads. Well, I've had a little bit of a lead glut, self-inflicted to an extent, and a little bit a problem of response rates. But the great thing is that this is an opportunity to show you guys why you should always be working your book of business and why you should leverage it to your largest extent. So everything I did this week were people that I sold policies before to. Now, let me kind of set the stage here. These are people who either have existing coverage with me, or they bought it and they canceled it, or they lapsed it incidentally, or not incidentally, accidentally or not. So these are people I've sat with before. So the dynamics are a little bit different. As you'll see, I'm actually going to go through a more detailed appointment by appointment analysis just to give you guys some perspective as to what I did and what I completed for these people as far as coverage goes. It was a very productive week. It was good in some ways and bad in others, as we're getting into, so it should be pretty useful. Let's see here. So yeah, let me set this up right for you. So when I went in and decided to work this book of business, my determination was I was going to specifically target people who are interested in restarting or adding coverage to what they have. That was the script that I trained my telemarketers to do. So I wasn't setting what I normally like to do, which is a review appointment. I had a ton of business that I've written over the past year that I figured I just wanted to pick the cherries off top and sit with people who are highly likely to just buy if they could get a better deal, or buy if they wanted more coverage. Typically, if they just wanted more coverage is how we spun it. So yeah, so the advantage here was trying to get high, just basically picking the cream off the top. We were also asking for referrals on the phone. That didn't turn out very well. Referrals should be asked in person while you're in the heat of the moment. More reason to do it now while you're closing a deal versus, hey, do you know anybody, when they're not even thinking about dying or their family or anything like that. So that's a good lesson too as to how and when to do referrals. Okay, so let's take a look at the production report, and then I'm going to take you through a detailed analysis of everything. So here's what we, is that the right one? No, it's not. Hold on, guys. Sorry. Tell you what, I'm just going to pull this thing up. Just scroll on down here. It's this third one here. All right, hopefully you guys can see it. So this is this week's production report. So I did a total of 15 booked appointments. I only saw 9 of them, very low, relatively speaking. And I'll get into that more. Really, it's the account of one day in particular. Wrote 6 apps, though, which very happy with that. So out of the total appointments, I wrote 40%, a little on the low side, but acceptable, and only wrote $3,708 in annualized premium. Not bad. It may look so like that on the surface, but because there's a little different element here, as I'll explain in a minute, it was actually just fine with me. So let's go ahead and get back to, I'm going to close this one out. Okay. All right. Bear with me, guys. I got to pull up what am I pulling up? Pulling up something. It's early. Pull up my production report. That thing. All right. This is all on the fly, guys. I'm not editing anything, so thank you for your patience. Okay, so this is the base, like we showed you earlier, the review of everything that we talked about. This is the scheduled appointment. So what I'm going to do is start on the left there. And now some of these appointments are new agent interviews. I'll skip over those, so like 3 or 4 of those are. The rest kind of in the middle, not on the very top, not on the very bottom. Those are all like real sales calls. So this one right here, Timothy, this was a person who called us. I drove 40 minutes to get there, and unfortunately he had to go do some work that required him to leave immediately. We touched base with him later, and he wasn't interested. So that's a no-go. I was kind of disappointed about that. Next here, this is a really interesting appointment. If you look at Tuesday, Mrs. Janet in Bridgeport, Alabama. I wrote a deal on her probably about 1.5 years ago, and she had had some existing coverage prior to me being there. And when I got there, and it was funny when I got there, the first time, her son showed up, and this guy was like, he claimed to be a 8th degree Taekwondo black belt, an 8th degree Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He also had claimed to have stashed $4 million in a bank deposit safe, of which his ex-wife, quote-unquote, stole from him. He also said that the military had to send in the special ops team to arrest him just recently, back at the first appointment, by the way, because he was such a trained killer. And this guy was absolutely insane. And so when I got there, I said, hey man, I have to ask you, Miss Janet, did your son really? And he was somewhat convincing. And I asked her, I said, did you is that guy like your son is actually telling the truth? He said, hell no. I have to explain to everybody I meet that he's just full of crap. So the guy's a drug addict apparently, and drug addicts tell pretty convincing stories. They're pretty good salespeople if they get their act together. So anyways, I went there and wrote her up a small $2,000 or $3,000 plan, something like that. It was like $26, $28, something like that. Then I headed on down about 1.5 hours to Boaz, Alabama, to meet a lady named Martha. I sold her a plan the first time around. She was pretty much under pressure. She liked what she had, but she didn't want to pay as much. And as it turned out, I wrote her the most competitive at the time, like I always do, or most of the time do. So, I asked her, hey, if you're under pressure, we could rewrite this as a $7,000. She didn't want to do that, and I'm not going to push it, so I didn't write anything on her. Then this last one down here, where you see Jimmy and Henniger, they took a $3,000 out with me. They swore I told them it was a $30,000, which I didn't, and they dropped it. So I kind of laughed when it was booked. So I got there, and one of the things I told them at the time was, hey, you got this insurance through work. They had an Aflac plan on both of them, and they were paying like a couple of dollars a week for $15,000 each, and and they were just kind of like, like a lot of people that work, they're convinced that their insurance is good enough, so they don't have to worry about it. So they didn't want to spend more than whatever it was for the $3,000. So long story short, it ended up they lapsed it. I came back, and sure enough, the Aflac, I guess it was a term policy, they'd had it 10 years. And it was lapsing. His was lapsing as of July, so he's got like 2 weeks left. And his wife's going to lapse in August. And so here we are in a circumstance, like I said, like I try to teach, is these people rely on their work insurance to stick, and then it ends up lapsing because, well, they just haven't, they're not thorough. They're not checking it. They find out by letter that it's all over, and the guy's got health problems. She does too. She's not in good shape. And course, they don't want to spend a lot of money either. Of course. So, long story short, I didn't write them up. They kind of were pissed at me. I think there may be something here, but this is one of those things that I kind of always teach you guys is, you know, you're either going to write the deal or not. And they're just not of the mindset yet. You know, once that thing fails out, I think you're going to have an angle. But, you know, I'm not going to pursue these people. You know, I just don't do that. I mean, it probably isn't a bad idea, but, you know, they either see the problem and are going to make the solution happen, or they're just going to be deadbeats about it. But that may be one I actually follow up on in a month or two. Because the guy wasn't too negative. Neither was her after I sat there and talked to him a little bit. So, you know, there may be something there. So, I don't know. So, for that day, 3 appointments, 1 sale. Good enough for me. Next day, this is my moneymaker day. I think I did about 3,500 this day. So, I started in the morning. The first one I did not go see. This was spread out all over East Tennessee, over the mountains and back again. So I decided to see the 9 a.m. later on in the day because my appointment setter said the fiance needed coverage and she was interested. And so she was working at Walmart, and so I figured, well, I'll just go see her after she gets off, and he told me 4 o'clock. So I went to the 10 o'clock first. Now the 10 o'clock was pretty interesting. This old lady, she's 82. She took out insurance for me about 1.5 years ago, and then she got into some trouble with bank draft stuff. She had some fraud stuff happen, and so they didn't save the plan in time, and it lapsed. Well, we tried to go save the deal, right? Try to recover the deal and get it set back up on draft, and a kid called us and said, you know, we're not going. You know, Martha doesn't handle her own affairs anymore. You know, we had to step in and do this. And that was the end of that. And it's hard to analyze this because sometimes when you have people who are, you know, elderly, they, of course, as some of you know through experience, you have to step in and assist because maybe they're losing their mental faculties. But the thing is, the lady, Martha, was real healthy when I saw her last time, so it's kind of like, okay. But a lot of the time, these kids will lie. You know, they're taking advantage of their parents too, and their trust. So, funny thing is, Martha called 1 or 2 more times, and we ended up setting an appointment this time, and we called back on her. And yeah, it turns out she was fine. And the grandson rolled in, and who's kind of like her protector or self-proclaimed, whatever. But there's a high level of trust there. So it was good that he showed up because then I could seal the deal and at least have a witness to it that, you know, everything's fine. So it's funny, too. He came in, and I said, you know, somebody said that Martha wasn't doing well, and somebody had to take over her affairs. And they both rolled their eyes and said, yeah, it's so-and-so, and don't listen to her. She's full of crap, blah, blah, blah. And her health is fine, and mental faculties are fine. So what's cool is I had a $45 a month deal on her. We got it up to a $75, and the woman makes a lot of money, so that's good. And she needed the insurance anyway. And I'm going to try to write a deal, a second deal in the house. The grandson wanted a policy on her too. So that was good. That worked out really well. Then I went down to Mr. James in Cleveland. He ended up rewriting a plan that was going to lapse or had lapsed or something like that. But what was cool about it, he wanted to start with a $25 a month. And then I went over to put his medications back and just glanced at a competitor's policy down there that he had taken out 3 months ago. And I said, why don't we just roll this all into my plan and you can just not pay these people and pay a little less? He's like, yeah, I need to do that. You're right. I can deal with you. And so I turned a 25 into a 50. And that was just sheer luck. You know, I didn't even ask him about anything else. I should have. But there we have it. So I walked out with a 49 or a 50 or something like that. Then I went down to Chattanooga, saw Mr. Anthony. We tried writing a deal on him, and there was some weird amendment requirement, and didn't go through. But anyways, his sister had taken out a plan since then. He's paying like $92 a month out of his pocket cash. And so I sold him on adding $2,000 more coverage with the carrier. So we got him $12,000 instead of 10 for like $2 less. And then as I'm writing that up, his fiance or spouse or whatever said, let me go get my son out of bed and you can write him too. So it was like you can see on the clock, it was like 1 o'clock, and she yelled at him. He came downstairs and I wrote him up for 29 or 30 a month, something like that. So that was good. You know, again, there's your referrals, right? You just got to be there a lot of the times and get them while it's hot. And then at that point, Rolled on over to Doyle, which is a town that's, gosh, it's probably an hour and a half from Chattanooga northwest. And that guy no-showed me. I think he was asleep. All the trucks and cars were there. Waited like 40 minutes on him, and no dice there. So then I drove all the way back down to see the 9 o'clock, if you guys remember, right up here, and I caught that guy right before. So much luck, I guess if you put yourself out there enough, you'll run into some good luck. So caught him before he left, and said, "Yeah, yeah, my spouse, fiance will be here soon. Just sit tight." So there she was 5 or 10 minutes later. He had to go do some work, and I wrote her up on a $34 a month deal. So that was cool. So, and then the last one I tried to reschedule. You see Kenneth in Chattanooga. He never picked up. I was running real late. I was like 2 hours behind. So I just said, I'll just do him another day. So that was that day. Very good. 6 deals closed. I think if my math, 5 deals closed. If my math's right. So final day. And oh, by the way, you'll see if you can see it here. Yeah, you can see it here. No, that's something else. There it is. So you can see right there. That's all the premium are at. So the last day here, and again, I spent an inordinate amount of time, as you can see, on that particular day. But that was where most of my production was. Yesterday was just a total waste of time, but not in the typical sense. But just nothing ever came from it. Probably drove 450 miles back and forth in rural Georgia, which is a lot of miles in one day, especially in Georgia. So first deal, I set at 9. High odds I'm going to sell him, but dude said I got to take his mom to the doctors. Something fell apart. Call me later. I actually called him later. Tried to see him around 4 o'clock or 4:30. Dropped in on him. I didn't get anywhere with the guy, unfortunately. I was pretty upset about that because I think that would have been a good deal. We'll get him next week. Robert and Lyra Lee, I wrote some deals on them. They're kind of deadbeats. It's kind of sad to see them on the schedule. They're just kind of lab-somatic types of clients. They ended up not being there. Tried them several times, back and forth, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. Called them several times, nothing there. The Julian and Dalton, that was an interesting one. Did some beneficiary change service work for him. He has a stepdaughter. Started writing the deal on her, and I asked for her ID, and she said, "I just got my prison ID." And so I said, "Prison ID?" I said, "You don't have like a regular one?" She said, "No." I said, "Well, let me go see it." So I looked at it, and there's no number on it, but yeah, it's like the correctional ID, and I was like, "Oh shit." I had a carrier that I was looking at to write her with, and everything looks good until I asked about hepatitis, and she's like, "Yeah, I got hepatitis." So I'm like, "Oh man, come on." I said, "How long has it been there or dormant?" 2 years, less than 2 years. So I was like, "Well, let's look at 2 year mark and make a decision then." But I can't do anything there right now. So that was my only deal, which would have been like less than $20, and fell through the cracks for the day. So then I drove up to Rossville to see Miss Moreland. That lady turned out not to be there, but it turns out I had the wrong address. As I was putting this together, I kicked myself in the pants. And then I drove an hour and a half to see Betsy and Jasper down south, and that didn't. She left me because I was like an hour and a half late. We scheduled that same day. Appointment setter should have pushed it back a little bit, but because of all the drive time. So, and then I hit everybody up in the afternoon there. So you see all that white there. I tried hitting up the first two. I didn't go back to Rossville, but so be it. So let's take a look at the analysis for the day on production. Like I said, not too shabby. We had 15 appointments, 6 sold, 40% closing ratio, and then 3,700 plus AP. So no leads were worked this week. I think that's important to understand. So everybody here, except the one in Rossville I just mentioned, that was actually a Facebook lead. Everybody else was was old clients. And even though my production was down, even though my appointments booked and actually showed were down, I'm happy with it because, look, at the end of the day, part of my typical business model, as you can see up here, is buying leads, right? And then a part of the production, the proceeds from that are going to pay for the leads, right? So because I didn't have any leads, the only expense I had was, paying an appointment setter, a couple $100. Everything else is profit. So I don't need to sell as much on weeks like this where I work just my book of business. So even though my production is down, I still have a better net or an equivalent net to what I would have on the weeks mentioned above. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm completely pleased. Wish I would have closed a few more just to get my numbers up to where I like to see them, but at the end of the day, no big deal. I'll get them later. We'll close them. In the meantime, my numbers are good. My numbers are very good, and I'm very happy and pleased with what happened. So kind of moral of the story here, guys, is definitely give shots to working your book of business. This is all stuff that I wrote within the last, I would say, 12 to 18 months. I didn't work anything that is, less than 12 months. Probably going to do that next week. But right now, for what we're working today, or what we're working this week, this is all stuff at least a year to 18 months in age. What we're finding, interestingly enough, a lot of these people, just like if you've worked age leads, their phones are dead. They're not working as much as you'd think they would. So there's some difficulties, there's some frustrations. But if you write enough business, you're going to find that you're going to write some more business with them. So a lot of people out there that you see right now have coverage before you add more coverage or replace it. So that begs the question, what happened to the first guy who wrote the first deal? Why isn't he in the home writing the second deal? Well, the reality is they're probably failed out of the business, or they're just not staying in touch with the people they've closed. So the thing is that, guys, if you go and see these people, if you make an active effort to try to do something with these people and go see them again, they'll buy from you again. Okay, I would say half of my clients I sell to already have coverage. So that means half the clients that you sell the first policies to, sometime in the next couple of years, are going to add more. So this is a great pool of business to completely dip into and continue writing. I actually have a lead piece that I'm going to use. I got it mailed to from my vendor. Well, it's a great lead piece, and it's basically a policy review lead piece, which is going to be very useful because most of these people, like I said, a lot of these people don't have their phone numbers working. So we're going to go ahead and mail this out probably closer to the end of the year when AEP starts and response rates start to drop, closer to the holiday times. AEP, by the way, is Medicare season, and Medicare and everybody and their mother Medicare mails leads, and it does affect response rates to an extent. But I think doing some work in the book business is going to be very powerful as well. Very much like this. I hear that the response rates on the piece is like somewhere between 5% and 15% on the first batch. I've got well over 1,000 clients, so if I could get 100 to 150 people replying back and set a lot of those as appointments, I'm going to be pretty busy for a while. So that's kind of the plan here, and work everything I've written over the past couple of years. So, so as we're checking out here, I know this is an early stream. Thank you guys, the few of you who are apparently early birds like I am. This is what I like to do. I like getting up early and working. Usually I'm at the gym right now, but I'm taking a week off, let my shoulder heal up. If you guys have any questions about the production this week, you're more than welcome to ask me. I always really like these videos. They're very helpful and useful, and showing you what this business is really like. Because you see a lot of projection made in this business, but you don't see a lot of actual examples of good, bad, and ugly. Hopefully you can see I'm not fluffing this bad boy up and showing you the real thing. So, also, as mentioned, as you can see in the thumbnail, before you watched, this is, I do 2 programs. Of course, the Final Expense Agent Mentorship Program. If you're a new agent, you're interested in final expense, and you want to work with an agency that trains, that has access to quality lead programs and carriers, this program is perfect for you. Reach out to me. Go to feagentmentor.com/contact, and then I can speak with you personally. If you're happy at an agency that you're at, but you want additional coaching, you want discounts on leads, and you'd like these kind of live streams, you'll like the Inner Circle Final Expense Program. Essentially, it's a group coaching / discounted lead / training program, all for one low monthly fee. There's a link in the description at the bottom that walks you through a quick webinar about how it works, and you're welcome to watch it, check it out, see if it's something that's right for you. Again, if you're a new agent, you're better set if you want to switch agencies, you're better set in the mentorship program. Even if you're experienced, I say new agent, but you can be experienced, and I work with experienced agents all the time. But if you're happy where you're at, but you'd like the idea of all the benefits of the Inner Circle I mentioned, check that out too. Again, if you got questions, feel free to post them. Other than that, thank you for checking this out, and we shall see you hopefully sometime next week. Have a great weekend, guys. Take care. Thank you.